Welcome back. Now, also during the session on the digital economy in Africa, during the World Bank IMF meetings in Washington, the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, Mr. Tony Elumelu, spoke about the role of young entrepreneurs in the digital economy.
The population of Africa presents an interesting, I see challenge or opportunity. We have 60% of our population under the age of 30. We have 55% of our economy is in the informal sector. So this presents quite interesting opportunity for digital economy. In my interaction with young Africans, I see people are quite determined, energetic, hungry to succeed and make a difference, who are extremely intelligent, but the environment at times makes it difficult for them to succeed. We can't talk of digital economy in Africa without fixing critical infrastructure, like digital connectivity issue. It's a major issue in Africa. I can't fix it if we don't have reliable access to electricity. So if we want to truly address the economy in Africa, these challenges have to be faced. Second is the issue of government policies and regulation. We need government to understand that if we prioritize the young ones, if we fix the operating environment and enable them to optimize their natural intelligence, they will do well and they will help us out to solve the problem that we seek to address. So regulation is a measure. Intellectual property, very, very important. We must fix this issue from the country. Incentivizing investors and even entrepreneurs, eliminating non-taxation issues.
And now move to some cherry news for Kenya, where sugar production is expected to jump by up to 19% in 2018, thanks to a recovery from a drought-induced drop in 2017. The East African nation has an annual sugar consumption of 870,000 tons, but production has slumped due to a high cost of production, old and inefficient sugar crushing machinery, as well as mismanagement and theft of farmers' funds. It relies on duty-free imports from the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa trade bloc to cover its annual deficits. Now, an annual analysis of the latest state of African economies conducted by the World Bank shows sub-Saharan Africa's growth is projected to reach 3.1% in 2018 and to average 3.6% in 2019 to 2020. While Nigeria, South Africa and Angola are expected to see a gradual pickup in growth, economic expansion is expected to continue at a solid pace in West African Economic and Monetary Union.
The World Bank says sub-Saharan Africa is on course for an economic growth of 3.1% this year, and that's marginally slower than its previous forecast, but faster than last year, thanks to rising commodity prices. By 2020, the Multilateral Lending Agency expects growth in the region to pick up to 3.7%. Sub-Saharan African economies were hit hard by a crash in commodity prices, which slowed growth, slashed government revenues, and weakened several of the continent's currencies. Growth was 1.5% in 2016, the lowest in more than 2 decades, before rising to an estimated 2.6% last year.
Economic growth has rebounded in sub-Saharan Africa, but not fast enough. We are projecting that growth will peak at 3.1% in 2018 and 3.6% in 2019.
While Nigeria, South Africa and Angola are expected to see a gradual pickup in growth, economic expansion will continue at a solid pace in the West African Economic and Monetary Union and strengthen in most of East Africa. The report indicates that these forecasts are based on the expectations that oil and metals prices will remain stable, expansion in global trade will stay robust, and external financial market conditions will continue to be supportive. In January, the World Bank's Global Economic Prospects Report forecast growth in sub-Saharan Africa would rise to 3.2% in 2018. The report says growth in the non-oil industrial sectors are yet to pick up, underscoring the low structural transformation in the region. Employment opportunities are lagging, public debt relative to GDP is rising, and poverty is widespread. It adds that African countries in debt distress doubled to 8 in the last 5 years, while those at high risk of going into debt distress had jumped to 18 from 8 in the same period. This issue of Africa's pulse also has a special focus on the role of innovation in accelerating electrification in sub-Saharan Africa and its implications of achieving inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction.
African governments need to speed up macroeconomic and structural reforms to bring back growth to pre-crisis levels. In implementing structural reforms, it is fundamental to fully embrace innovation, to boost productivity across sectors, and more specifically, to increase access to electricity and boost agricultural productivity.
We are seeing several countries continuing to grow at a robust pace. This includes countries such as Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal in the WAMU region, and in East Africa, countries such as Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda are seeing an uptick in growth this year. We also expect Ethiopia to be one of the fastest growing countries in the world.
Nigeria, South Africa and Angola make up about 60% of sub-Saharan Africa's annual GDP. The bank says Nigeria was experiencing a recovery in oil output, but hurdles in non-oil industries and services would be a drag on activity. The World Bank said that while growth prospects were encouraging, there were still challenges ahead.
The Dutch shareholder group has given notice that it plans to file a class action lawsuit against Barclays plc, Commerzbank AG and Absa Bank Limited over their roles in a 2015 share sale by South African retailer Steinhoff International. The Financial Times reports that the VB has given the three banks 2 weeks' notice of its plan to file the lawsuit and invited them to open talks on an amicable settlement. VEB maintains the banks are liable for damages incurred by Steinhoff shareholders because of their roles in the listing of the company on the Frankfurt and Johannesburg stock exchanges as part of its creation of a holding company in Amsterdam. Steinhoff is yet to comment on the matter, but Steinhoff, which has more than 40 retail brands, including Fantas, Conforama and British chain Poundland, faced a fight for survival after admitting accounting irregularities in December, wiping out about 85% of its market value and triggering a liquidity crisis. And that's our show today. Thank you for watching. I am Bisi Adebayo.